now. So welcome to Advanced Open Water, also known as Level 2, and Enriched Air Nitrox classes. And I'm your instructor, Gabrielle. Gabrielle is my real name, and scubawithgabrielle.com or TallahasseeScuba.com are my websites. This is with Scuba Educators International, used to be YMCA Scuba. We have excellent standards, and it's going to be a great experience. I teach beyond the standards, which are already high, so you're going to get to learn some things that are not in the standards that I feel are very important. I dive all the time. I do want to do some introductions, but just to tell you a little bit about me, I say I have a scuba addiction. I dive all over the world. I've been to 87 countries, and most of them I've dived. And I find that certain skills that they don't teach in advanced, like SMB deployment, are really, really important. So we're going to do skills and drills in things that are beyond the requirements. So this is what is required. So advanced open water certification is now called Advanced Level 2. Most people still call it Advanced. 5 dives are included, at least 2 of which are on Nitrox. And if you want to join, I already mentioned it's $8 additional per cylinder for rentals. We already decided on our dive sites. So in the Gulf of Mexico, we will do 2 dives that are going to be deeper. So if there are open water students with us, it's cool. Most shipwrecks in Panama City, I love shipwrecks. At least in one of our sites is going to be a shipwreck. Most shipwrecks are max depth, 75 to 80 feet. And we'll do some navigation on a shipwreck, which is a lot harder. And the real navigation skills will be done at Blue Grotto, which is going to be easier. Anytime you have metal, it's more challenging. So, is he sad now? Because
He's stressed, but he's fine.
I'm sorry.
No, don't be
Okay.
sad.
Now, at Blue Grotto, we're going to do a deep dive there to 100 feet, and we'll also accomplish a night dive there. If you guys wanted to do additional night dive in open water, we can do it at the jetties is a good place to do it in Panama City, or we could do a boat dive in South Florida or in Panama City. So
I'm a little nervous about that. Is it better to do it? I don't know why it just freaks me out. I mean, obviously, I'm sure it freaks a lot of people out a little bit more than usual, but...
Yeah, so I can tell you from experience that I've helped a lot of people on their very first night dives, and by the end of every time, I've always had people say how cool it was. Like, they didn't expect it to be that cool.
Okay.
So at Blue Grotto, we accomplish a night dive by going into an open water cavern. It's open water because there's a line the whole way. We're going to have flashlights with us. And how many of you have flashlights already? Good. You technically need to have a flashlight for advanced. To get advanced certified, you need to have a flashlight. I do have a couple of extra, but not enough to outfit everybody. There are different kinds of flashlights. LED is a good one. What do you guys have? What kind of flashlights do you have? You don't need ones that are going to light up. Please don't overdo it and get like crazy, insane, bright, obnoxious lights that freak the sea life out or anything.
How much is crazy obnoxious?
How many lumens are you talking about? So
I don't remember, but I got it like at the caving adventure.
Oh no!
That's where I got
So
I got the $20 one though.
Oh, okay, you got what?
The $20 one.
Okay, you're good then. It's fine. If it's $20, it's not going to be obnoxious. I don't
I
understand
have
why.
another one that's wide, like this
Okay.
one's like the
Well, bring them
target one.
both.
Yeah,
And bring them both and we'll play. And so we're going to learn about flashlight etiquette, which is a really important skill to have. We're going to learn about it in the advanced portion of the class. So we're going to do deep dive, night dive, orientation, navigation, buoyancy are going to be our first things that we're going to do at Blue Grotto. I want you to get comfortable. Some of you I've never dived with before. I want to make sure that everybody's on the same page. We're all comfortable. Our buoyancy has to be really good, or we're not going to continue with doing a deeper dive. I have to make sure everybody's good. And so typically the very first dive is just kind of getting orientated, getting neutrally buoyant, maybe making some adjustments with your weight if you need to, encouraging you to do frog kicks, only frog kicks. How many of you have not been to Blue Grotto?
I'm saying I haven't been because I only went that one time and it was awful.
Was it when it was packed full of
Yeah.
water students?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the nice thing about December is it's not going to be packed at all. So
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
See something, so.
you'll see a lot.
Besides, it's amazing.
It is amazing. It's really, really amazing.
So
So it's a great training site because they have platforms. They have dive platforms where you can practice skills. And so when we first go in, we're going to be shallow. We're going to be doing some skills. And how many of you know how to do frog kicks? Anyone not know how to do frog kicks? Suzanne, do you?
Class, but I'm
Yeah, so that's only kind of. So I'm going to have you watch the Blue Grotto what is it called? Orientation video, whatever it's called. I'm going to have you watch the video, and it's going to show you what to do and what not to do. But our first dives in open water, I want to make sure that you have good form and trim. So it's no arms, frog kicks only. Okay, and that's going to help us not kick up silt and not make it bad for everybody. So. And then we have optional dives that include a navigation drift dive, a night dive, search and recovery, a deep dive, underwater photography, boat dive, computer-assisted, and environmental dive wreck. So I can tell you one of the ones that we're going to do at wreck. We're going to do a shipwreck, so that's taken care of. So what else are you interested in? Do you want to do search and recovery, photography? Do you want to do a drift dive? What do you want? What interests you guys?
I think photography is cool.
Does everyone have a camera?
GoPro.
You have a GoPro?
Yeah,
That you have a camera then,
but not everybody. So.
right?
I guess I do have a GoPro.
If you got one of the old cheap ones, I've got like a basket full of the hard cases. You can put them underwater.
Yeah.
I went to 100 feet with it and didn't get wet in it. But I mean, I've literally got like a 12.
Well, and now they make things for your iPhone and stuff that you can do photography with your phone underwater. That's pretty cool. So.
Well, I've never been.
Oh, you're afraid to do that?
That scares me. My phone is expensive. I do not have that money.
But you have a camera, right?
No. Oh, we have a GoPro now. Yeah. You're
That-
right. Sorry.
so
Yeah,
to
yeah.
clarify, a GoPro is a camera. So.
No, it's new.
Okay.
It's new. It's new to us, so I just
All right. So who wants to do photography? Raise your hand if you have any interest in photography. I taught photography in the Galapagos Islands on a boat. And so I owned a video production company for 10 years. That was my primary living in my 20s. And so I love photography, and I taught a week-long underwater photography class in the Galapagos Islands. And so I love photography, and it is different when you're diving with doing photography. So if you're interested in that, that could be one of our optional dives.
Would you be able to recommend easy to use cameras?
Yeah, I have a
Expensive?
so define not too expensive. What's your budget? Like $200?
200, 300.
So what I have, I absolutely love. It's an Olympus TG5, and I used to carry this massive Canon digital SLR camera with the housing, and I could like strobes and a dome port. It was huge, and I carried it all over the world. And I just remember every time I would go on a trip, first off, I was terrified something was going to happen to it, and just lugging it around, and then I would get on the airplane and I'd have to kind of break it down and put it in, It was a pain in the butt. And I started diving with this woman who had a TG4, an Olympus TG4, and she was in my class, and I started looking at her pictures, and I was like,
It's not like the screens.
gosh, that looks really good, like really good. And so I went ahead and got a TG4 at the time, and I loved it. And I stopped carrying the Canon around. I still have it, and I can use it if I need to, but I have just as good a resolution, and it's great. So when that one died, after lots and lots of photos, I went to the TG5. Now they're waterproof up to 50 feet, but then you buy a housing for it, and it gets you to 150 feet if you want. And I got mine, I want to say, on eBay. One was on eBay, one was on Amazon. So I got a really good deal of like $300 for the camera and the housing. So
Sometimes I've heard that housing can be almost as expensive.
it is as expensive as. So I can tell you with the first TG4 that I had the Olympus housing. And with the TG5, I thought, I'm just going to try it, and I got the Icolite housing. in all honesty, I think that the Olympus housing is actually better and easier, which is fascinating to me because Icolite has probably a better reputation. So I think you can't go wrong with either housing. I continue to use the Icolite housing, but the other one is fine. So what else? Search and recovery, drift dive. Any interest? If we did drift dive, we need to.
Search and recovery.
Okay, search and recovery. We'll do search and recovery then.
I feel like that's just more.
It is. So we'll do that. We'll do that at Blue Grotto.
Yeah,
It is useful.
Like, I'm not gonna
If you
get
drop
anything out
something,
of
you need to
using my
find it.
GoPro to take
Okay.
pictures because it's an older one that takes terrible photos.
Yeah, we can still bring it. And,
Yeah,
if nothing else, I can teach you like.
on that.
I can teach breathing techniques with your, like taking good pictures and breathing in a way that helps you take good pictures. So, but we can do search and recovery. That's good. Okay. And so I'll hide an object and I'll teach you about search patterns and how to find it. So, okay, good.
Oh my
All right.
God, I'm really excited.
I did. I had an advanced Nitrox class that I did at Blue Grotto one time
That was
with
my class.
Easter eggs.
Oh no. You hit the
Just different things. Yeah.
yeah.
No, the Easter eggs was the bomb class. Like everybody loved it, and all the other divers that were there were jealous of us. They were like, "I want to take part in that," So look at her. Oh my goodness, she doesn't understand. So here are some skills we're going to practice. We're going to refresh on any skills that maybe you haven't done in a while. And in just a minute, actually, why don't we do it now? I want to go around the room. Introduce yourselves. Tell us approximately how many dives you have. When was your last dive? And how comfortable in general you feel in the water. So why don't we start with you and we'll go counterclockwise.
My name is Spencer Riley. I just completed my 25th dive this last weekend. Not this last weekend, but I guess Friday.
Where were you?
Belize.
Nice. I love Belize.
And I'm fairly comfortable in the water now.
Mhm.
I did my first night dive there, and that totally was freaky.
So you did your first night dive last week? Woo.
And
It would have helped to be advanced certified before you did that.
Yeah, well, that's what I was
Yeah.
doing. I signed up for the class.
Yeah,
before
yeah.
I read it.
No.
But the night dive was quite exciting, and it wasn't nervous or nerve-wracking at all once you get in there.
Good.
John Shiver, just picked up my certificate.
Great.
4 dives. Looking forward to getting a lot of experience.
Same. I'm Abigail Showman. Done 4 dives. We just got certified a couple months ago, I guess. So just jumping right in.
It's awesome.
So.
I'm Kat. I have about like 10, 11 dives.
When was your last time?
Probably the aquarium. Georgia Aquarium.
Oh.
I think that's my last time. No, maybe out.
Okay.
I have to check.
I think you came to Panama City after that.
Yes.
Okay.
I can't believe it's already October.
I can't either.
It was like April yesterday. So.
I know. I agree.
Well, 40 years ago, I had about 76 dives, and then I didn't dive until last August.
Wow.
I had 6 dives. I
Wow.
got a new certification with
Oh.
mine because my old one was an organization no longer there, so I figured, well,
What,
it's
really?
much. It was NASCS.
Oh, yeah. Mhm. That's amazing.
So,
So you were on the cutting edge 40 years ago.
yeah.
That was back in the day when they used CO2 cartridges in the BCs, and it was really unsafe. It was really scary. Yeah.
That's a woman here.
No, really, it was. They didn't. I mean, science has come a long way.
It has to.
So, and then where did you retake it?
With Coral Reef,
Okay. Jason, or who was your instructor?
Jeff Bauer or something.
Jeff Bauer. He's a great guy. He's been one of my instructors in the past. So good. All right.
Cool. Yeah, walk right away. About 27 or 28 times.
Yeah, for a fairly new diver, Walt is super active.
Last dive with Wreck Dive, Panama City, that was great.
Tyler Fox, have done 8 or 9 dives. Last one was the Panama City one we did. When that was, like a month, 2 months
Was that the one that you went to too? Was that the last one you did? I feel like you were on the boat with us because I kept throwing watermelon off and you kept picking on me for
Oh,
throwing
yeah.
watermelon.
The things we remember.
Don't bring a banana.
Right. Don't bring a banana. Okay.
How comfortable do you feel in the water?
Pretty good. So looking for last time, almost ran out of air.
Oh, no. That's never good.
Alright, so I do have 10 dives, and the last one was the Georgia Aquarium.
Oh, wow.
Did you get to go in the aquarium?
Yeah, it was awesome.
I organized trips there.
You can go in there.
Yeah.
Where you dive
I
in
actually
there?
have,
The whale shark certification. I
have mine too.
I was like, what is this in the mail? And
So-
I'm like, oh, yeah.
So Kat was on the very first trip that I did to the Georgia Aquarium. I do trips to the Epcot Aquarium frequently too. So I do the Epcot Aquarium 3 or 4 times a year, but Georgia Aquarium's more expensive. So the first time I did it was that June? What month was that?
It was May or later.
Okay, May. It was May. And I had 34 people there. I booked all 3 slots, plus we had some non-diving guests as well.
We still have people on the waiting list.
I did. And then, so...
No, I was like 12 on the waiting list. And I ended
You
up
got in, I know. That's the thing. Like when you plan early, like so the next one is 6 months out, 5 months out now, and it's full, but we have I think 3 people on the waiting list. So if you're interested, go to Scuba Friends and get on the wait list because there's enough time that people are gonna back out. It just happens. It happens.
Like it looked like I had no chance.
But you did. And so and I have 24 slots. I reserved 3 different time periods. It's only 8 divers are allowed max inside the aquarium. So, and you get to dive with whale sharks, so it's pretty cool. Did you see whale sharks in Belize?
If you get a
No.
Okay.
certification for it too, you get to do like a behind the scenes
Yeah.
tour as well.
You get a tour.
Because it's like $60, $70 to come.
Yeah, something, you know.
And you get like an extra 5 minutes. or
Yeah.
Something with the sharks.
Anyway, I'm Morgan.
Morgan brought cheese, yay!
I brought
And
the
snacks
cheese.
and olives, thank you.
You can know me as Cheese Girl. I have about 10 dives in my belt. Mainly we're just with our first class, and then I worked at a marine lab, and I did a couple there, and then I did the Georgia Aquarium, and then I did a Panama one. I'm not super confident in the water, and that's kind of why I took this advanced class, is to help build my confidence with a group of people who I feel like are going to build me and keep me safe.
Mhm.
I definitely have some panic, and I'm looking forward to beat that and being able to overcome panic because I love it. Once I'm down there, I'm just like, oh, this is amazing. So.
And I approve of your language when you say I look forward to beating it because that's how you're going to beat it. When you say it's going to happen, I'm going to overcome anxiety, it's going to happen. But if you say I hope I can, or it's probably not going to happen. So that's good. All right. And in the back of the room, we have our dive masters in training.
I'm Maureen. I know like half of you. I've seen you guys around. I have about 60 or 70 dives. I love to go diving. My last dive was like last weekend. I think we were in Panama City. So I look forward to doing this. I'm very comfortable in the springs. Very comfortable, beyond comfortable, but the ocean does stress me out a little bit. But we're working on it. So
That's right.
Very exciting.
I'm Elena. I've been on every dive with Morgan. So been 60 or 70. We need to start logging them more often.
Yeah.
Oh no. Okay.
My fault.
It's a requirement with Dive Master that you log, so you need to go back and check. Okay. You gotta get that right. All right.
But I'm the opposite of her. For some reason, the ocean is so peaceful to me.
It's great. You complement each other.
A lot of ways.
The springs are cold and miserable most of the time.
I disagree.
But wait, you went in the springs and also didn't wear a wetsuit. Is that true?
Oh, she was
Yeah,
miserable.
it was bad. After like 15 minutes, I was like numb.
Blue lips.
So,
I couldn't handle it. I'm a wimp.
I feel like it makes a difference on like me and Maureen are a little bit thicker, so we hold our warmth a little bit better. Where Tyler's sorry. Oh,
Politician.
Some springs are different though. Some are a little bit.
Well, I agree.
Some are
Springs are
warmer.
different. So Troy is one of the colder springs, and Blue Grotto is one of the warmer ones. So Blue Grotto is 73 degrees. Troy is typically 68.
Cold, yeah.
It's-
Cold.
And believe it or not, 5 degrees makes a huge difference when you're in water. So, and I love Troy. It's beautiful,
Yeah.
but I'm always cold there. So.
I don't think I would go no wetsuit in Troy.
And the nice thing about diving in the wintertime in Florida is even if we have a cold snap, when we're in the water, it's awesome. And then Blue Grotto, they have fire pits and stuff, so you can, bring something to make a fire, and it's nice. And then some of us have boat coats, right? So I love boat
yes.
coats.
The best thing.
They
I've
are
ever
like
bought in my
ever.
entire
It's awesome.
life.
Like, yeah, we look silly, but they're.
Yeah, I saw a guy with one, and I was like, that's gonna have to be.
It's once you
He
get
looked
one,
happy he had it.
it's so awesome. Yeah, boat coats are the best. So other skills we're gonna do besides refreshing it includes entries, back roll, giant stride, Nitrox and advanced dive planning, analyzing cylinders. Now you're not gonna have to worry about that. You're already certified. And buoyancy, form, and trim, weighting, navigation, flashlight etiquette, diver etiquette, SMB deployment, surface marker buoy, also known as safety sausages, deep dive, and night dive. Okay? So, we're going to jump into navigation, and after navigation, we're going to let Spencer head out, so you don't have to stay here for the Nitrox. Navigation, we're going to do navigation out in the open area. And no, with advanced, most of the skills that we're going to be practicing are going to be water side. We're going to talk through it. Matter of fact, what we're about to do now, we're going to do some navigation drills on land. We're going to do it again at Blue Grotto. And so anything, including search and recovery, if I lecture about it right now, and then our dives are in December, you're going to completely forget everything I said. So I'm going to lecture water side, and we're going to talk about it. And so the nice thing is we have time between our dives. You're gonna plan your dives, and we have time between our dives to change out our cylinders and go ahead and talk about what are the skills we're going to practice and how are we going to do this and what search pattern. You get to choose your search pattern, but I'm going to tell you what the options are and what the benefits are and the like. Okay? So let's go ahead and head out. Use the right door, please. Stay away from the dog. Go on.
See him in here.
He's gonna freak out. He's gonna start screaming.
Let's fill in a boaty.
There's no way.
Did anyone bring around here? Did you bring your ball? Did your dad come? Good. All right. So I think I'm learning more of these. Why don't you go ahead and make sure everybody gets one? So everyone come up here and you just help them get them out of the bag. So I'm gonna get some more out of the coverage. you need to accommodate for if you're in the ocean? Current, exactly. And so you need to think about current is going to impact that as well. So other things to notice is there's a side window. Do you see the side window? Okay. And I want you to notice that the side window, like right now, put north to north, and look where the side window is, and what number do you see in the side window that I know. Well, this is only her second time here, so
We have a very nervous dog at home, so you get it.
yeah, I hate it for her, but so I'm gonna make sure we're still recording.
Okay.
We are still recording. All right. They're good.
I can't.
What?
Well, it's just making
Got my glasses.
Oh.
You're making her feel better.
Gorgeous. They really bring out your eyes.
Well, that blueberry thing is really good.
Well, I mean,
Bella?
That's such a good girl. That's such a good girl.
Sorry, thanks.
Wow. You're strong. So, what were you going to ask?
So we've got a test tonight.
We do. It's just on Nitrox.
Very tactical.
Mm-hmm. In your packet should be dive tables. No?
That's your first list, that's your.
There's not.
Really that table.
No dive tables?
There is one. It's on page 61.
I'm going to give you some extra ones too.
Ones that are
Great.
the fancy paper.
Yeah, fancy paper.
You have any particular ones?
Yes,
Is this waterproof?
they are waterproof. They're very nice.
Oh,
Would you like some?
yes. I was like, had extras.
Okay, I can tell you.
Oh, they're different.
Yeah, there's a Nitrox 32 and a Nitrox 36. You don't have those?
I have hard copy ones.
Are they the little ones?
I
or-
have printout ones. On regular paper.
Yeah, I can tell you.
Fancy waterproof paper.
Yeah, no.
They're really nice. These, I love this paper. So, let's see here. As soon as everyone's back, I'm going to go over just a couple more things. Do you have dive tables? Yeah, you have dive tables in yours. Okay.
We don't have our day tables with us, but they're on the one that you send us electronically.
There is, but I can go ahead and give you some too.
Because I brought my computer so we could look at it.
Here you go. Thank you. You have these already? Well, let me make sure. Let's see.
This is 9 so.
Hang on just a minute, okay.
Wait, can you see? No. Oh, yes,
I don't know if I have enough for everybody, so give me just a minute. Let me make sure that I do. I have some that's not on this fancy a paper.
Does it matter if one's green and one's yellow?
Yes, you need one of each. One's 32, one's 36.
We'll use them both together.
One's 32, well, we'll get into that later. We're going to finish up on advanced first. Use the other door for future reference. I'm trying to get the contractors working on fixing that, so that's okay. It just, you can see it's scraping the top of the. All right, so we're all back. Okay, I can tell you. Let's see here. I think they're like $20 total or something. You don't need them? Okay.
Oh, can I borrow some?
Do you have some?
Not on me.
Not on you?
Yeah, I just need to borrow it for tonight.
Okay, so I have, for you guys, since you're taking the test, I'm going to give this to you. You already have the nice ones. All right. So a couple of other things we're going to do with advanced. For the advanced portion, I mentioned SMD deployment. So there's different kinds of surface marker buoys or safety sausages, right? Some have, this is a lift bag here. Some people use a lift bag instead. There's oral inflate and octo inflate. So this is oral inflate. So I'm going to let you, why don't you go ahead and unroll that. And, okay, so underwater, you want to deploy these. Some people wait to deploy them and once they surface. That's not good, right? The whole point is to make sure that a boat doesn't hit you, or, you know, in South Florida especially, there have been incidents of fatalities and amputations and people who do survive are normally in really bad condition when they're hit by a boat. And so when the current is strong, we always carry these. It's just a smart thing to do. If you get separated from people or the boat or a dive flag or anything, you've got a way of showing where you are. So why don't you're going to kind of press in with your teeth and then, remove your mouth and then keep going. Okay?
You're doing this underwater.
You're doing this underwater. So here's what you're doing.
You're moving your.
You're taking your
BC.
regulator and you're taking your breath. And then when you're breathing out, you're breathing in. And it takes some work. It takes some effort, right? So those of you who've done it know it's not easy.
But we're still at the surface, right?
You're at your safety stop. You're at 15 feet.
Gotcha.
So if worst case scenario, you'd be okay.
Right.
But it's the most challenging thing is getting your buoyancy good, right? Because so when you're exhaling, you're gonna right, and this is typically on a reel. So I'm gonna have some reels with us, some finger spool reels. Does anyone already have a reel? Do you have a reel roll? Okay, that'd be your next purchase. Just get a finger spool. You can get it at Coral Reef. But so we're gonna have a reel attached to this because if we were holding it, guess what would happen? we'd bolt to the surface. But if we have a reel, then it's not so bad, right? Now, a lift bag like this is an octo-inflate method. So let's see, I'm gonna have you open that one.
Or this is like if there isn't a line. If you're not going up a line, you're going to take your
Right. So this is typically a drift dive. So in South Florida, almost all the diving in South Florida is drift diving. There's more current there. Everybody on all the trips I go to are required to have these. And if you're required to have them, you should know how to use them. And almost everywhere I've been around the world where these where there's current, it's required. Do you see what kind that is? Is it it's an octo inflate, okay?
So I don't see.
Yeah, it's an octo inflate. So this is, now you can see the difference between, keep inflating yours. You can see the difference between, this is an octo inflate. By the way, this has like a whistle and all kinds of extra safety things, okay? But this here is where you put your octo in, okay? And so now with the octo, it's just octopus, right? You just a little tiny bit at a time, and it'll start filling up. Okay, so now you see his.
Salty.
Right. And so salty. All right. So the fun part is always now what you do when you're underwater. You want to have this fully inflated, and it's going to stand upright when it's fully inflated. And so there's going to be a good portion of it sticking up before you do, which is great. Which means if there's boats around, they're not gonna, they're gonna see this thing and not you, right? And so then when you surface, and by the way, on the one that I use, I have my emergency contact information. If anything happens to me, I have my name and my number on it. It's a really smart thing to have. So when you, what's that?
Blood type.
Yeah, I didn't even know my blood type. So when you surface, then what do you want to do? When you surface, you keep this up until the boat comes and gets you.
Do you put your contact information or your emergency contact information?
I put both.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
I was gonna say,
I put
great.
both. I want people to know who I am and who to come. Now, but I also wear this. I wear. I'm just really extra safe. So I wear this everywhere, including when I'm diving, which is a road ID that a lot of runners wear. But I wear it on my watch, and then if anything happens, it has my name, 2 different emergency contact information, and a PIN number, so that if something happened to me and I was, not able to talk, emergency medical personnel could go in and find out what my history is. Other door, please. See the scrapes on that side? Go ahead.
We need a note.
Yeah.
It looks nice.
Well, I've been waiting on the contractor. Contractors in Tallahassee and probably pretty much everywhere are so full. No, they're awesome. They're too good. The really good ones are booked for months. And so you can see all the scrapes on that side where it's sunk. But anyway, he's about to fix it. So when you're at the surface, you're holding this until the boat comes to get you. And then the fun part, go ahead and try it, Spencer, is deflating it.
Oh, right.
Yeah, well, that one is easy. That one is easy. Now this has an oral inflate as well, so go ahead and try an oral inflate.
Can you deflate that when you're on the boat?
You can wait till you get back on the boat.
Okay.
Yeah. But typically, you have this thing stringing from you when you get
it's
back on the
easier.
boat. Yeah, it's easier. And then you have to roll it back up. And so it's interesting because I have a lot of people think that they're going to prefer one kind, and then when they get to practice with both kinds, they actually prefer the other kind.
Where do you usually keep it on?
I keep it clipped on my BC.
Okay.
And so when it's rolled up, it's not very big. Anytime I'm in open water, I always have it clipped on me. So.
Has it ever like accidentally like rolled over? Like, why did I look so red? Oh, that's amazing.
There's one.
That's a nice one. It actually has two different ways of inflating it. So yeah,
Good way to go.
yeah, that is great.
And you can
And that was just donated to me, so it's nice. So yeah, and then now go ahead and tug the string and see. I think that's going to be easier to deflate too. That's nice. I think that might be my new SMB. So, all right. So then you get to roll it up, and you have to make sure that you take all the air out. So that's Surface Marker Buoys. A lift bag works much like that one in that it's an octo. It's an octo inflate. This one's shorter. It's a stubbier one. I can't do Velcro. Can you open that? Thanks. So, yeah, thank you. So this one is a stubbier one, but it still would get attention if it's floating. It's big, it's yellow, and so yeah.
That one seems easier.
Well, you'll get to try it and see what you think if it's easier. So I have a whole bunch of different ones for you guys to try, and I encourage you to try. I want you to try at least 2, so that you know what is it like to use oral inflation underwater, and what is it like to use octo inflate. What's your preference, Maureen?
When I started the advanced class, I was like, I feel like I'm gonna like the octo ones, but I actually like the orally inflated ones a lot better.
Why?
Less fun around? Or?
I don't know, it just feels like I have more control of what I'm doing, and I don't know,
Yeah, a lot of people will tell you that. What about you, Elena?
Same.
Yeah, interesting. So you just never know until you start playing with inflating them what your preference is going to be. I can tell you for the first 10 years of my diving, I used an oral inflate, and now I carry an octo inflate. But now that I see this one, this is going to be my new one of choice because I like the which one do I? Yeah, the purge valve alone.
That's the key right there.
Because the other one is such a pain to do.
Would you suggest that we have one before we go to the ocean dive on the 9th?
It's a really smart safety thing to have no matter what. I have extras that you guys can borrow, but it would be good if you had one at some point. They're fairly inexpensive. You can get them just about anywhere, including on Amazon for cheap. Look at the ratings. Like I have some that are yellow on one side and orange on the other. Some people will tell you that they mean different things. Most people don't know what they mean, and therefore it just means watch out, there's a diver below. Like if you're facing the yellow out, would it mean, there's something wrong? I think that either way, you just want to have an SMB that's visible more than anything. Now, one of the people I dive with has a huge one. Like it's probably 12 feet.
I'm just imagining one like those things that.
Oh yeah, that would be funny.
Air shooting up.
That would be funny. All right, so let me go over a couple more things with advanced before we get into Nitrox. So flashlight etiquette is really important, and so is diver etiquette. One of the most important things to know about diving is everybody coming out has priority over those going in. That applies to everything, whether they're coming out of a cave, whether they're coming off of a boat. Everybody coming out of the water always has priority over those going in. So get out of their way. You don't know, for example, if you're in an open water, let's say we're in an open water environment where there's also a cave, which is just about all springs in Florida. Cave divers, it's really important for them to get out when they have planned to get out. So we don't want to be in their way. If I see them and I'm leading you, I'm going to say, come on, let's get out of their way. We want to make sure that they can get out. They have a plan. They like to stick to their plan. They don't like to have to sit and wait for a whole bunch of divers to get out of their way. So we get out of their way. That's one important thing with etiquette. And then flashlights are really key. You need to have a flashlight. I like to carry 2 flashlights most places, and actually you'll get used to me. I carry them on my hands. I have some hand-mounted ones that I love because then I can use my hands. Yeah, they're actually photo lights. So they're photo lights so that I take pictures and they look pretty. But if I need to use my hands, I can use my hands too. The only downside is I can't really get in pockets very easily. So if I need to get something out of my pocket, it's hard because I have this big flashlight on my hand. But for some people, they prefer these canister style. It's heavier underwater. Obviously, it's not going to feel heavy. Some things to keep in mind: you never want to shine it in somebody's eyes, right? There's 2 ways to say okay underwater with a flashlight. So if let's say you're doing a night dive. Did they teach you this when you did? Just
a brief
yeah.
before we jumped in.
So, so to say okay, you can do a big circle with a light on.
Doesn't matter which direction.
It doesn't matter. Well, it depends who you're talking to. But for open water, it really doesn't matter what direction.
Okay.
If it's a circle, then you're going to circle back. Okay. Another thing you can do if your buddy is next to you is shine your flashlight on your hand and say okay. And if you do this, you're getting somebody's attention. Right? So let's say you see something really, I'm going to use this one because that's too heavy. You want to get somebody's attention. You're just going to wiggle your flashlight. Now, if you do it really, really fast, that means something's wrong. So make sure that you are careful about if you're calling attention to something because if I see somebody like frantically, I'm thinking something is wrong. But I see people do that. They don't know that means that there's something wrong. And so don't do that unless there's really something wrong. So you can call attention to something with a little bit, but if you're like, that means something's wrong. When you come up on a boat at night, how do they see you? You shine the flashlight on your head, okay? And so on the top of your head, right, this is your okay sign, and you wait until they acknowledge that they see you. And normally they're going to tell you, once we see you, we'll let you know, and you can turn your light off. I carry glow sticks as well a lot, and so then they can see you that way too. Personally, when I night dive, one of my favorite things to do is turn off the lights. I love it. And some people are afraid of it. I love it, love it, love it. I like to get away from all the obnoxious lights, especially the really bright ones that are just,
There's settings on it.
The ones where the sea life is like, oh crap, divers again. I don't like those. And so I like to get away from people, and so I typically will find a buddy that is of the same kind of mindset, and we'll kind of go over to somewhere where it's darker, turn our lights off, let our eyes kind of adjust, and then do the bioluminescent dance. No, I love bioluminescence. You know what that is, right? Okay, what is it?
It's like they're like really tiny. I can't remember what they're called, like phytoplankton, yeah, and they like.
They react.
Yeah.
Huh?
They react to like.
Yeah. So it's phytoplankton, and in the ocean, it's really cool because it looks like sparks and things when you're moving your hands and your legs really quickly. So I think it's just beautiful. And another thing is when your eyes adjust, you start to see things that nobody else sees. And so you see coral spawning, you see eyes, like, oh, what's that? And you swim over to it, and they're not freaked out by you holding a light, and they're like, okay, it's cool, it's just another fish, it's fine, and so they'll tend to hang out longer with you.
Either that or they're like, what time is it? The sun's down, get out of here.
No, they really do tend to appreciate not having lights in their eyes, and that's another thing with etiquette. Be careful, because certain sea life, like seahorses, you can really hurt a seahorse by shining a flashlight into its eyes. And so don't do that. Be respectful of sea life. Turtles, admire a turtle, but don't shine a light. My lights actually have settings. So let's say an octopus. I don't want to blind the octopus. I can turn it to red setting, and it's not going to hurt any sea life. Their eyes are going to be fine with having red light. And so I can turn it to red and still appreciate it without making, blinding any sea life. So,
is that a filter or is that a setting?
Mine's a setting on my light, yeah. And so you can buy regular lights that have those settings, that have red light settings too. So, in fact, you can buy them land ones, not just underwater ones, where they have red, because now everyone knows that red is a color of light that doesn't impact turtles. So, and I'm really big about that. So, with night diving especially, I like to be respectful of everything. What's hard about night diving is depth and things like that are a little more challenging. Like you don't know where you are in the water column unless you're looking at your gauge. Now, all my gauges glow in the dark, and so it makes it nicer. If you have a dive computer, most of them have a light, a backlight or something. And so if you have, how many of you have computers? Okay. So those of you with computers, do you know if your computer has a backlight? Okay, I want you to check it. I want you to make sure that you become familiar with your computer. Mine does, and so I press a button and it's going to light up for me.
My computer has one button, so.
Yeah, well, sometimes the button, you press it 2 times or 3 times, you press and
the
hold.
first time I'm like, oh my god.
Yeah, I know.
I have to
So
read the manual for this.
you do have to read the manual. Please read the manual.
Do you have one
Yes.
that you prefer that's like not super expensive?
I like integrated more than wrist mounted personally, and I'm a big fan of Oceanic just because my first dive computer was an Oceanic and I still have it and it still works all these years later. I like it so much that the next one I bought was also an Oceanic.
My grandma wants me to buy us one for Christmas.
Oh, wow.
We just have to tell her which one we want.
Yeah, so just research them. Certain ones like
I love grandma.
Sunto, I know, what a great
Is she adopting grandchildren?
I know.
You mentioned wireless.
But just do some research before you have her invest in something. The latest one that I have is an Oceanic Pro Plus X, and it's really nice, and it's color, and it's just really nice. But when you see me in the pool and stuff, I'm not going to have it. I have my old X still. It's awesome. So
Give us a price point that they should stay within of reasonableness.
oh, it just depends on your budget completely, right?
Okay.
So you can spend $100 or you can spend $1,000, and
Well,
you can
I
spend
know
even more
I'm
than
gonna
that.
have a really expensive purchase for mine in the future when I eventually get around to cave. So I just got a really cheap one for
Yeah.
now to hold me over.
And that's fine.
So
And that's fine. Is it integrated or is it wrist mounted?
It's a wrist
Yeah.
mounted, but like you can still set it to like whatever your like mixture is too. So
Yeah, that's good.
So it's actually pretty good. I just have to figure out how to press.
I want you to, this is your homework. If you have a computer, I really want you to look at the manual. So I know we had some exchanges via email where I am a geek. I just, on the day of the dive is not the right time to try to figure out your computer. So look at the manual. If you need me to help you find your manual for you, tell me your make and model of your computer and I'll find it for you. And if you go to YouTube, you can find all kinds of great videos to get to know it more. Okay? Can you think of any other flashlight things we should know?
Charge your batteries.
Yes, definitely charge your batteries. So most of these kinds are disposable batteries, but I use rechargeables in most of mine now. So, and then the other kinds that I have, they're Solas, the photo lights. I just plug them in and charge them. So.
Did you find rechargeables for your one game adventures?
It came with one.
Rechargeables? Oh, okay.
All right, so
And, like, the
let's take a
battery for it.
break, and we'll let you get out of here so we can get into the Nitrox portion. So, all right, so we'll see you on the 9th, and I'll send an email out to remind everybody of what schedule we
Can
came
we
up with.
start some coffee?
Yes, we can start coffee. All right, quick break. I'll start coffee. I have some pumpkin creamer too. Yeah. Let's see.
All the night.
Everything that halfway done, and it's hot in here.
So freaking hot here.
And you've already gone through half of it? Half the Nitrox?
No, yeah.
Oh, I thought you were.
No, I'm looking forward to cheating off you as well.
No, I only got through 2 chapters and it took me like 2 hours. Or maybe, I think more. And if I have to do math to pass this test, I'm
Yeah, it was really good.
It got hotter all of a sudden than it was. How is it this, the group seems to like know each other? Is it like FSU or how?
Well,
I think
part
we
of
go
the dive
together at some
group,
point, yeah.
dive club.
Dive club?
Yeah, they and
Is it an
we
FSU
go,
dive
we got
club, or is it
certified
some-
with Marine, so. It was Scoop Friends?
Google Friends.
Google Friends is the-
Google Friends,
It's the
the
group
group
on
you can
Facebook.
dive and, yeah, go on
So look for
Facebook and
that.
join it.
On
Yeah,
Facebook.
it's good. I kind of go out every time they go.
That might be great, because, yeah, I only have one dive buddy, and so. Then it's the option. But it sounds like she, I don't know, it sounded like y'all had a lot of diving going on.
Oh, you guys got that many dives?
What?
You guys have a ton of divers already.
Did you guys want So nobody was talking.
I could go for
No.
that.
I'm sure too.
I was in Panama City, the dive boat person, or the dive shop there recommended Gabrielle, so I.
And then I always do strong. Okay.
And it's
All right,
hard
are
to
we
dive
ready?
boat this time of year, because I film the 11:30s. I'm able to get out during.
Great. I only had one bad experience. Wasn't even a bad experience.
Last time I went, it was great. There was 3 of us and the 2 owners of the dive shop.
Just message me with what time you're available. Okay. Can you guys take your chairs up? Just switch your chairs, huh? Thanks. All right, are we all? No, we're not all back. Okay. Oh yeah, we are back. We're all back. So, Bella, come here. All right, let's put her back out. Come on, Bella. Go follow. Come on. Good girl. All right, thanks. All right, so why Nitrox? Let's talk about Nitrox.
You can dive deeper longer.
Yes, pretty much. And I love Nitrox. Like, love it. It just, once you start diving Nitrox, you'll never go back to air, in my opinion, unless something's wrong with you. Because if you like to do repetitive dives, especially if you like to do more than one dive in a day, it's great. You're going to be able to stay deeper, longer, and have less surface interval requirement, and it's safer too. So divers have been using air as a breathing gas since the 1800s. And although it's convenient, wait, now is your dog growling at my dog?
Yes, it is.
Bodie, come here.
It's not because of Bodie though, it's because of me.
Bodie, come here. Bodie, come here. Bodie's is totally, oh, okay. He is opposite of an alpha dog, so he will never get riled up about anybody. So.
All of our resource guards, people.
So, oh, okay. So it might not be the best gas to use in all diving situations. Like if you were doing a super, super deep dive. By super deep dive, I mean like 150 feet or, yeah. So now this class is going to get you certified to 100 feet, but there's an unwritten rule that when you're advanced certified, that 130 is the actual number. So yeah, it's interesting, but so you know, that's pretty much across the board with all certifying agencies. 100 is the actual number, but pretty much recreational diving, most people go by the 130 rule. So I do a lot of dives that are at 110, and I'm glad I have those extra 10 feet because there's a lot of really cool stuff, especially like shipwrecks. You know, you might miss some, but just know that your air is going to go faster the deeper you go. Nitrox advantages include reduced decompression stress, longer dive times, and other advantages that aren't always known, such as I always have more energy when I dive Nitrox. I don't feel as tired. My mouth doesn't feel as dry. I feel like so much better when I dive Nitrox. Why? Because you're getting extra oxygen in your body. It's permeating your tissues. And so when I have divers with disabilities, they always tell me that, and I have rheumatoid arthritis. I'm one of them. When I have pain, it goes away when I'm diving on Nitrox. It's gone. When I'm deep diving on Nitrox, it's like miraculous. So people with disabilities, when I take them diving on Nitrox, they're like, that's like the first time I felt pain-free in so long. So it's very healing too. So we're going to talk about the history and experience of Nitrox, general physics and physiology, advantages and concerns, Nitrox dive planning, and operational aspects. And I don't want us to be here till 11 o'clock tonight, and it did take us longer to get to just this point. So I'm going to try to go a little faster than I normally do, if that's okay with you. And I do have another lecture that I recorded where I probably didn't go as fast, but yeah. So what is Nitrox? These are important things for you to know for the test, okay? So Nitrox is any combination of nitrogen and oxygen where the oxygen percentage is greater than 21%, that of normal air, which is 20.9%. Scientific and recreational divers typically use Nitrox 32 and 36. The range of our training is 22 to 40% oxygen. And again, 100 feet is our max depth on the books, okay? Nitrox is also called Enriched Air Nitrox, EANX, where the X is the percentage. So you have two dive tables. One is yellow and one is green. Do you have yours, Suzanne?
Yeah.
Okay, great. And so, so the yellow one is 32% and the green one is 36%. And it's pretty much that way with every agency. 32% indicates yellow, 36% indicates green. So EANX. The breathing mixtures, besides just air, are not anything new. Paul Burt used nitrox at altitude in a balloon in 1874, and he discovered CNS, central nervous system, O2 toxicity. Henry Fluess of Seba Gorman made the first nitrox dive in 1879, and then that company developed an O2 and air mixing unit before 1912. I do have a nitrox analyzer with me, by the way. We're going to be using this when we have our cylinders. I didn't want to lug a cylinder in, so we're going to use this. And so the most important thing to do with any analyzer, they all are different, but is to calibrate it to the percentage of oxygen in air, which is what? 20.9%. 20.9%, just to be, and some people will put 21%. It's not going to be that big of a deal, but 20.9%. Once you calibrate it, then you're going to turn the air on first. Don't hold it up and then turn it on, because then you risk, this is a $160 sensor. I know this because I had a student do it not like I suggested, and they destroyed my analyzer. So don't hold it up and then turn it on, okay? Turn it on and then hold it up, because some of the handles are a little more sensitive and you might just get a psh, So you do that, and then you're going to look, and the numbers are going to change, and you're going to look for whatever you ordered. So typically you order 32 or 36%, but there might be cases like deeper dives where you want to do a different mix. So for example, if I'm diving the Oriskany and I'm going to 130 feet, I don't want to dive with 32 or 36. I want to dive with 28.5%. Okay, we'll get into what that means later and why. So whatever you order needs to be plus or minus 1% of what you ordered. So if you ordered 32%, it shouldn't be 34%. It should be up to 33% or down to 31%. So you always analyze. Never, ever, ever trust somebody else's analysis. It's your responsibility. I could tell you all kinds of horror stories of people who just, became complacent. And people I know even, one was a fatality in South Florida who was diving a really deep dive, not on nitrox, on a different mix, but he trusted the dive shop in it, and he shouldn't have, unfortunately. So, all right, so let's see here. Germany's Dragerberg produced an automatic EAN 60 apparatus in 1913, and closed-circuit rebreathers used that mix for operations in World War II. And pretty much the military has used a lot of different units using nitrox as well. Working divers in the 1950s started using nitrox to increase safety and work time. And then really, in the beginning, it was an elitist gas. It was. Back in the 80s when recreational divers started, it was only like really the elite divers who dived nitrox. So,
Well, when my dad was at the Navy dive school in the early '80s, he was talking about how nitrox was just like becoming a thing,
Mhm.
and how like only the SEALs got to use it and everything. All the
Oh,
SEALs
yeah.
used a lot of helium. throughout the
Yeah,
training,
yeah.
so.
that's true. The military definitely got to get on the front end of that. And so when it did start to roll out to recreational divers, it was limited, very limited, and it was expensive, and it, you know, it was like, wow, you have nitrox. So, but it's so common now. In fact, many dive charters that I go on, liveaboards and just regular dive charters in South Florida, you have to be nitrox and advanced certified if you want to dive with them. They won't let you on the boat if you're not. So.
They only have the mixture for nitrox.
No, they want safe divers. They want people who are certified to get. So you'll see people out there who are open water certified divers diving to 100 feet, and they don't have any training in it, and that's kind of stupid. They don't know about nitrogen narcosis. They don't know about, you know, what can happen. They don't even understand that their air is going to go that much faster, and they do it. And so the advanced nitrox certification is required, number one, for safety, but also because they tend to have a tight timeline. So like if I'm going shark diving in Jupiter, that's a picture of me diving with sharks in Jupiter on that outside of that book there. I'm going shark diving in Jupiter. I'm doing a 3-tank dive with a 1-hour surface interval between, and they're all 3 deep dives. It has to be nitrox. You can't do air. You know, you would be too nitrogen loaded in order to do that on air. So in 1978, NOAA established standard mixtures of 32%, which is NOAA Nitrox 1, and 36%, which is NOAA Nitrox 2. And some employees led the program and formed IAND. Is that where you said you were certified or no? It was what was your certificate? Okay. All right. This was in 1985, which is when nitrox really started to happen with the recreational community. So let's review some things that you should already know. But it's important to review. Atmospheric pressure is defined as the weight of 1 square inch of a column of air from sea level to the top of the atmosphere. So 1 atmosphere is 14.7 psi at sea level. And we don't really need to know about bar, and we don't really need, it's up there. But unless you have, so when I dive with people from Europe, they're using different like bar. But 14.7 is what we need to know because we're using psi. Each 33 feet of salt water adds an additional atmosphere of pressure. How many feet of fresh water?
34.
34. Very good. Does everyone remember that? Okay. So you
Who
need to
said
remember. Kat did.
Oh, okay.
So absolute pressure is defined as the sum of atmospheric pressure and hydrostatic pressure exerted on a submerged diver. So in salt water, absolute pressure is, and we're going to have a lot of formulas, by the way, depth divided by 33 plus 1 atmosphere equals absolute pressure. Okay? So depth divided by 33 plus 1 atmosphere. We know this from our open water, right? Why plus 1?
Because that's the atmosphere.
Yeah,
Like,
we're
you
at
know,
1
we have
atmosphere
to-
right
yeah,
now.
yeah,
We're at 1
that's
atmosphere
all
right
of
now.
us.
We go to 33 feet. We're at 2 atmospheres. We go to 66. We're at 3 atmospheres, and so on. Right? So this is showing you just that. Okay? In freshwater, again, it's 34. So how do we find depth from pressure? If pressure is known and atmosphere is absolute, then depth can be easily calculated. So in seawater, depth equals pressure minus 1 times 33. So if pressure is 5 atmospheres absolute, depth equals 5 minus 1 times 33 equals 132 feet of salt water. Okay?
We're not allowed to go into 32 feet.
No, we're not. but that's what you know. So.
By the way, should I press the button and then
Oh, yeah, thank you. Want me to do it? You know which one it is?
I can try.
I'll press it. Hang on.
I'm gonna watch you press it, so next time I'm here, I know what
Do this out.
Oh.
Sorry, it was coffee break. Everyone understand this? Okay. Dalton's law and partial pressure. Air and nitrox are gas mixtures, as we know. Dalton's law says that the total pressure, and this is probably a rerun from your open water, exerted by a mixture of gases is equal to the sum of the pressures of each of the different gases making up the mixture, with each gas acting as if it alone was present and occupied the total volume. The pressure of an individual gas in a mixture is a partial pressure. By the way, guys, I'm filling you with lots of information tonight. We're taking a test, but let me tell you something. When you're out there diving and you're diving nitrox, all you need to know is what 4 things need to go on your cylinder, which you'll learn, and how to analyze. And the 4 things that need to go on your cylinder, one of them is maximum operating depth, MOD. When you know those, that's all you need to know. This is just all the stuff behind it. Some agencies don't tell you all this stuff, but it's a good refresher, and it's good to know, like, where does all this come from? Why are we limited by depth, for example? So Dalton's equation, P total equals P1 plus P2 plus P3 and so on. 14.7 psi equals the pressure of nitrogen plus the pressure of oxygen plus the pressure of argon plus the pressure of carbon dioxide and so on. So how do we find partial pressures? We need to look at a formula, right? So we need to know how to calculate it. So the partial pressure of any gas in atmospheres equals F, the fraction, the decimal fraction, or equivalent of the gas, times P, the total pressure in atmospheres absolute. Okay, P equals F times P. Okay, so let's make it a little more simple. You already know how to deal with decimal equations. 25 cents is 25% of $1, or 0.25 of a dollar. So a 25% oxygen mixture would have an FO2 of 0.25, right? So if nitrogen percentage in air is 78% at 1 atmosphere absolute, the decimal equivalent is 0.78, right? Since the pressure of nitrogen equals the fraction of nitrogen times the pressure, we know how to convert depth to pressure, we can find PN2. So at 66 feet of salt water, PN2 equals 0.78 times 3 atmospheres absolute. Remember, we have one right now at the surface, we have 1. At 33 feet, we have 2. At 66, we have 3. So the partial pressure of nitrogen is 2.34. So we took 0.78, the decimal fraction of nitrogen, times 3 atmospheres absolute to get that number. Let's talk about the physiology of nitrox diving and Henry's law. So if we ignored temperature and solubility, the amount of any gas that would dissolve in a liquid is a function of the partial pressure of the gas that's in contact with the liquid. You guys remember what I taught in, and you might remember this from your open water. Well, who's Henry? Yeah, the guy with the soda bottle. Old man sitting on the front porch with an old Coca-Cola bottle. And you want to control, right, if you shook that bottle up, you want to control all the pressure that's coming out of it. So reducing the partial pressure of nitrogen in the breathing mixture makes less nitrogen available for absorption in the tissues as a cause of decompression sickness and nitrogen narcosis. This is why we use nitrox. We're helping our bodies deal with nitrogen. So divers with on-gassing are saturated with 1 atmosphere absolute of air at the surface, including about 0.78 atmospheres of nitrogen. Excuse me. As pressure increases with depth, the partial pressure of nitrogen increases, and it starts to dissolve in the blood and other tissues, which is called on-gassing. Off-gassing is the opposite. On ascent, the nitrogen begins to leave the tissues as a result of lower partial pressure of nitrogen in the lungs. Why do we use nitrox? Nitrox mixtures have lower pressure PN2 than air, so less is absorbed on identical dive profile using air, and there's less decompression obligation. Now, if you really, really wanted to be safe, you could gain additional no decompression stop bottom time. But if you really wanted to be safe, you could use an air table and dive nitrox, and you are just golden, right? So you could be super, super conservative. You can still dive nitrox. Let's say you have a dive buddy who's not nitrox certified. You're using their tables. So you're being really conservative. I do. I mean, I dive nitrox no matter what. I love nitrox. So other advantages include less nitrogen absorption during the dive, so less decompression obligation, longer no decompression stop limits at depth. So when we go on a boat, we'll do some calculations where you can see the comparison. It's great. You know, all the open water divers that are air certified, they're coming up fairly quickly because they're limited, and we get to stay down longer, and we get to go deeper. So, and there's less surface interval requirement between dives too. It's also safer intervals between diving and flying, and it's most conservative again when you use with air. So if you use with the air settings on your computer or air table, that's going to be the most beneficial. So nitrogen narcosis, you learned about in open water scuba, right? So, and I told you that typically at 80 to 100 feet is where people get nitrogen narcosis. Well, the chances of you getting it on nitrox are pretty slim. So the reduction in narcosis with enriched air mixtures is theoretical, though, because they haven't done enough research on it. But it makes sense, right? You've got more oxygen. You're not permeating your tissues as much with nitrogen. So what are concerns? There's always concerns. Not everything is just yay, right? We need to be aware that oxygen becomes toxic at the high partial pressures. And you still need to plan for nitrogen narcosis and oxygen toxicity. Nitrox also costs a little bit more than air. It might not be available, they say, but I can tell you I've been in third world countries and still been able to get nitrox. There have only been, of the thousands of dives that I've been, maybe 2 places where they didn't have nitrox, and it was a long time ago.
Georgia Aquarium.
The Georgia Aquarium. Aquariums are different. Yeah. They don't care. They just don't care. Yeah, they want you to,
You're barely under that 25 range,
yeah. So you're gonna get air, and they're gonna overweight you like crazy. So, but she feels sad. Well, you brought it on yourself, girl. Can't be attacking other dogs. Safety issues really have to do with filling stations, and obviously analyzing your cylinder and equipment considerations too. So if you have an old regulator set, for example, you want to make sure that it's nitrox ready. So it has to have O-rings and Viton and things that are going to be okay in that environment, which we'll talk about shortly. Nitrox mixtures have a defined floor, which I mentioned earlier, which is a maximum operating depth. And you still need to think about the fact that you have to plan to avoid decompression sickness. So oxygen becomes toxic at high partial pressures. So let's remember again that the partial pressure of oxygen in atmospheres, PO2, equals the decimal fraction or equivalent of oxygen, FO2, times P, which is total pressure in atmospheres absolute. FO2 is the fraction of oxygen in the gas mixture. So air, 21%, is 21, EAN 32 is 32%, and so on. Decimal fraction or equivalent is point whatever, right? PO2 is the partial pressure of oxygen for total pressure in atmospheres absolute. So again, PO2 equals FO2 times P. So let's find absolute pressure. The percent of oxygen is measured using an analyzer, then we can convert it to the decimal equivalent. So the total absolute pressure is calculated for the planned dive depth by depth divided by 33 plus 1. So here's a table of partial pressures of oxygen at depth in atmospheres. I know. Tiring, you're yawning, I know. So you can see it's pretty apparent how those numbers came about, right? Okay, central nervous system, let's talk about that, including the brain and spinal cord. One of the things we need to do is avoid central nervous system, CNS, oxygen toxicity. So when the PO2 is about 2 atmospheres, oxygen becomes toxic. So that happens when breathing air at 218 feet of salt water or when breathing 100% oxygen at 33 feet. So think about it. I know a situation. I know somebody here in Tallahassee who was diving in the Keys, and he didn't analyze the cylinders at the dive shop. Now, thankfully, before we got on the boat, he analyzed his cylinders. And guess what happened? He had ordered 32%, and guess what? It was pure oxygen. If he had dived where we were planning to dive, which was the Spiegel Grove, he would have died. I mean, so this is why don't ever trust that because somebody at a dive shop analyzed it for you. They've got a lot going on. They're analyzing lots of things. They might have missed something. They might have made a mistake. This is why we analyze again. I'd rather be safe.
So if you're picking up the cylinders from the dive shop, can you say, can I, like,
Yes,
use, like,
absolutely, always.
Will they let you use their analyzer?
Yes, they will.
Okay, so
Yeah.
that's fine. Be like, can
It
I
is
analyze
100%
before I
fine.
pick it up? Okay.
Encourage you to do that.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And so, what happens with me a lot is people will go ahead and pick things up, and then they come to my house and they're like, can I use your analyzer? Of course. But if you do it at the dive shop, that's the best possible way. That way, if there's a problem, you're like, okay, wait, I ordered 32% and this one's 34%.
Takes away liability for them. They're like,
It
yeah,
does.
no problem.
Please
Like,
do it,
Okay, cool.
Okay? It says nitrox is not a gas for very deep diving. By very deep diving, we mean like 200 feet, not anything we're ever going to go to. 150 feet, 100, We need to not exceed recommended maximum oxygen partial pressure exposures in order to avoid getting CNS O2 toxicity. So the PO2, and Suzanne, I think you were asking something about this with your dive computer with the PO2. So PO2 for recreational diving, our maximum is 1.4. Scientific divers can be exposed to a maximum of 1.6. So working divers, scientific divers go with 1.6. And everyone else typically goes with 1.4. Okay? Here's a list of O2 limits for diving. That ranges from unconscious to convulsions. Now, CNS toxicity can be serious, and symptoms can occur anytime when breathing a gas where the PO2 is greater than 0.5 atmospheres. Typically, the symptoms occur in more than 1.6, and O2 tolerance is decreased by stress, cold, and CO2 retention. O2 symptoms include CNS O2 toxicity and whole body or pulmonary O2 toxicity. This occurs, again, with extended exposures to greater than 0.5 atmospheres of oxygen. It's not a problem normally with nitrox exposures. Symptoms would include painful cough, painful breathing, reduced vital capacity, fluid buildup in the lungs leading to edema and scarring. Saturation divers limit oxygen exposure to 0.35 atmospheres during times in the chamber to avoid pulmonary oxygen toxicity. Here's a mnemonic you need to know. You want to write this down. Convented. Convulsions, visual disturbances, hearing disturbances, nausea and vomiting, twitching, irritability, and dizziness. Convented. I'm going to leave that up there where you take some notes.
How does E go with hearing disturbances?
Ears.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. I mean, they couldn't have said comforted. That would have been hard. People love acronyms.
I feel like they could have done it better.
They could have said ear problem. I don't know. Anyway. Does everyone have it? Yes? Anyone not? Okay. Factors that increase the risk of CNS toxicity include physical exertion, thermal stress, being really cold, and CO2 retention. Drugs can also impact gas physiology, things like Sudafed. So if you are taking Sudafed, which I do quite often when I dive, then you want to be even more conservative, right? So you want to reduce the maximum PO2 exposure amount by 0.05 atmospheres for each factor. So if you're really cold and you're taking Sudafed, That's going to be 0.05 times 2. Factors are additive, and there can be individual problems and conditions. So anytime there's something going on, like working hard, this is where it's a problem. So if you're really working hard and you're on nitrox, you just need to be really careful. So I've been in situations before, like in the Galapagos Islands, where we're with a dive master, and it's like swimming an underwater marathon. I mean, it's ripping current, and we're just trying to get to this rock where we're gonna attach to a rock, and watch sea life. But the getting there part sometimes is really challenging. And so you just have to be careful if you started to have the symptoms after doing that. What is she eating? What is she eating? Oh, no. Come here. What are you eating? Bella. Is it a bug?
I think it's a leaf. Looks like a leaf.
Okay. All right. If it's a leaf, that's okay. It probably is a leaf. Yeah, go get some coffee. I'll get some later. Push out. Yeah.
And you said you want it now or later?
I'll get it later.
Oh, my gosh. Hey, what's up?
Hello.
Okay. Yeah, keep her over there.
Do you want to hold her? I can give you a leash and you guys can keep her over there and she might be better. If you want, but you don't have to if you don't want to.
We're best friends already.
Aw.
We have 2 dogs.
Aw.
Perfect. Here. I can give you this so that way she can still be in here and hang out.
Oh,
No, we get to stay here.
we're gonna be best friends.
I'm worried about that behavior, though. That's not cool.
Yeah, I don't know, but she doesn't know what Bodhi.
No, she loved Bodhi the minute she saw him.
It could just be
He's
all of
super
hers.
passive too.
Did you want creamer?
Hi. No creamer.
Oh, coaster. Yeah, that's right. You're a black coffee girl. I forgot.
You could probably use your.
There you go.
Thank you.
Does it look dark enough? I put a lot of coffee in. Does it look dark enough?
Yeah.
Okay. No? That was a yeah. Yeah.
No, that's fine.
Okay. I don't normally make half pots of coffee. I make either a whole thing or I make a cappuccino. Okay, good. It's organic, shade grown, fair trade, good coffee from the New Leaf Market. So, all right.
Come on.
She's so sweet.
She loves you.
Like
I
you
get a
do.
picture. I get a picture.
Yeah, don't you guys want another one?
Yeah.
We have 4.
Oh,
I'm telling you, it's so
Our big
busy.
has
She really likes you.
We travel so much.
Okay, back to the topic here.
Yes, right.
So let's talk about nitrox mixtures and hypercapnia. You have to be careful when exerting yourself and using nitrox, as CO2 toxicity probability is enhanced. So with more oxygen, red blood cells fill up with oxygen, causing excess carbon dioxide to be carried by the plasma, and too much can begin to affect pH and cause hypercapnia symptoms. So the chances of this happening are slim because but let's just say that you're lobstering. Okay, people who are on the hunt and, they're spearfishing or they're lobstering or whatever, this is where you can get into trouble. And I actually know somebody who was lobstering who did actually develop symptoms and unfortunately didn't. A lot of people who dive a lot become complacent. And you all know me, I am like a safety nut. I'm really, really particular about being safe. And I see people becoming complacent a lot. And this is somebody I know who was a dive master on that same trip that I was on Emerald Charters. Great guy, young guy, and he went lobstering. And there were 2 divers, and they decided to take turns instead of having a third person stay on the boat and have dive buddies. So he went diving and he went lobstering and he overexerted himself and started to have symptoms. And nobody was there to help him. And he didn't, it wasn't registering with him that he was having a problem. And ultimately he died, And so the moral of the story is dive buddies are there for a reason. Don't ever become complacent about stuff like that. So, but lobstering and, the thrill of the kill and that kind of thing, people who were spearfishing, they do tend to work harder than just regular, divers. So, all right, here's the NOAA O2 exposures and the maximum single exposure minutes and the maximum per 24-hour minutes. So, always make sure that planned dives don't exceed the single dive or 24-hour exposure time limits. There's a CNS toxicity clock that basically says that the NOAA single exposure table gives the maximum time at each PO2 on a single dive. And as that exposure increases, we use up more of our clock per minute using a dive. Theoretically, the percent of exposures could be added up for each depth and time second, and the diver would be okay as long as each total exposure didn't reach 100%. This practice is not condoned by SEI diving, so I'm not sure why we teach it, but I'm there. There you go. So I'm skimming over that. Nitrox dive planning. This is important. You want to know this. You want to write this down. Dalton's law equals the pressure, the partial pressure of gas in atmospheres, which is P sub G, equals the fraction of gas in mixture, which is F sub G, times the absolute pressure in atmospheres absolute, P, and then ATA, okay? So Dalton's law is the partial pressure of gas in atmospheres equals the fraction of gas in the mixture times the absolute pressure in atmospheres absolute. So, you know, clocks, magic circles, all kinds of things. So let me know when you have this. Nope, not yet. This is so good, Maureen. Thank you.
Glad that you like it.
Yeah, and get some cheese. Cheese and coffee, they go great together. What's in that bowl? Oh, that was the olives. I was like, what?
All.
No, no, there's one left.
Yeah, there's one.
Oh.
But
I ate them all but one.
I'll eat the last
Go for
one. I'll
it.
take it one for the team. Sadly,
You should have cut the cheese. You look a little bit better at it than me and Gabrielle.
I know, she's doing a much better job. Can you go ahead and do one
I'm
more?
really good at cutting the cheese.
Dun-dun-dun. Yes, please. Thanks. Okay. Now we're all back together here. The magic circle reminds us how the three terms relate to each other. So if you divide any lower term into pressure to arrive at the other lower term, so you multiply the lower terms to arrive at the pressure. Thank you. All right, let's talk about, still writing? Okay. Magic circle. Everyone there? Okay. Nitrox dive planning. The oxygen exposure or dose is PO2 in atmospheres equals FO2 times P is atmospheres absolute, which is what we just went over. Maximum operating depth, you're going to want to write all of these down so that you have them. These are important formulas to know. Maximum operating depth equals pressure equals PO2 divided by FO2. Fraction of gas, FO2 equals PO2 divided by pressure. That's best mixture. We're going to have some best mixture problems on the test. So the PO2 is in atmospheres, FO2 is a decimal equivalent of the percentage, and the pressure is in atmospheres absolute.
What does it mean by best mixture?
We're going to get into that in a minute.
Okay.
It has to do with what's the best mix given this time and this depth. What would be a good mix? So I mentioned earlier going on the Oriskany. I had to do this to figure that out. What would be the best mix? I knew it wasn't 32%. I knew it needed to be lower than that. How did I come up with that? We're going to do some problems too. Let me know when you guys are there. Ready? Okay.
Yep.
So we already said the oxygen dose is PO2 equals FO2 times P. So what is the PO2 for EAN 36 at 99 feet of salt water. I want everybody to just try to think about it. Keep it to yourself. Okay? Think about. She's crazy about you. It's hard to get any work done, isn't it? That's so cute. It's funny because she's shy at first around guys, and then she just doesn't.
Oh, she had nothing to do with it.
I know. She's like, she trusts you now. All right, so everybody figure this out. And again, FO2 is what? The fraction decimal equivalent of the gas. So we know it's 36%. So, and then 99 feet of salt water, how many atmospheres absolute is that? Go ahead and everybody figure it out and keep it to yourself for just a minute. We'll walk through it together. So everyone has FO2 equals what?
0.36.
0.36, everyone have that? And 4 atmospheres absolute, everyone has that?
Crap, I did 3.
No, not 3. We have 1 at the surface. We have another one at 33 feet, so that's 2.
Why was I thinking for some reason you just plus 1? Oh.
We're not
The
getting to that
original
yet, right?
equation.
That's
Okay.
another equation, yeah. Okay? So we now have the 0.36 and the 4, right? So what are we going to do with it? We're going to take it times each other, right? It says FO2 times P, right? So 0.36 times 4 equals what?
1.44.
Good, 1.44. But what's our maximum PO2? 1.4. Oops, not a good thing then, right? And again, scientific divers are allowed to go to maximum exposure of 1.6. This being said, we use 1.4 because we're really conservative, but there are people out there who set their dive computers to 1.6 who are just recreational divers, okay? So this is why we do dive planning. So let's go through some other things that should help. Ready? Abigail, ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Maximum operating depth. So the first thing we're going to do is look at PO2 divided by FO2. So the MOD, maximum operating depth, means MOD, in feet of salt water, equals pressure, here's where the -1 comes in, times 33. Okay. So for EAN 32, remember that our PO2 max is 1.4, right? So 1.4 divided by 0.32, where'd the 0.32 come from?
32 feet of salt water.
EAN 32. It's a fraction, it's the decimal equivalent of nitrox 32. Okay, so we take 1.4 divided by 32, and then we subtract 1, and take that times 33, equals 111. For EAN 36, the MOD is 95, not exceeding a PO2 of 1.4. Interestingly, when most people analyze their cylinders, they put the 1.6 PO2 because nothing, I hate to say, nothing horrible is going to happen to you typically at a 1.6 level. And so because you're limited by maximum operating depth, it's not saying you're going to put MOD 130 and go to 130. It's saying you're aware that if you go below 130, you're in deep trouble. You know, you're in a lot of trouble. So we'll go over what MOD is shortly, but some people put MOD, what's their maximum depth going to be? So I told you we're going to go diving in Panama City, and I said the max depth is going to be somewhere between 75 and 85 feet. Well, you could use nitrox 32 or 36 at that depth. Okay, we'll do some actual scenarios shortly. So best mixture is PO2 divided by P. So what's the best mixture for a dive to 80 feet of salt water? What's the best mixture? What do you think? How would you get there? What would you start with? No.
You don't know how deep you're going?
80
Oh,
feet.
80 feet. So how many pressure or how many atmosphere?
Yeah.
So 80 divided
3 atmospheres.
There you go. You got it, Kat. 80 is what? How many atmospheres absolute is it?
4?
No, it's not 4 and it's not 3. What is it? How do you calculate it?
80 divided by 32.
Oh, equals what? Calculator. Get the calculator. Seriously, if you're. Mhm.
What was the 33 again?
Atmospheres.
Okay.
2.42.
Hmm?
2.42. 80 divided by 30.
2.42.
Plus one.
Plus 1
Yeah.
Plus 1. Equals 3.42. Right? Now, what do we do next?
We do,
What are we missing? Look at the very top. PO2 divided by P. We got the P sub T. We need the PO2, right? So what is that?
it's what the,
Percentage off.
PO2. What's our PO2? It's always the same number, unless we're a scientific diver. What's our PO2? 1.4. Thank you. So 1.4. So we take 1.4 divided by 3.42, and we get 40.9. Right? We get 0.409 or 40.9, but we can't exceed 40, so our best mix is going to be EAN 40. I know it's a lot. Again, this is just so you know the science behind where our numbers are coming
Why
from.
can't we exceed 40 on my ear?
Because remember, we're being certified between 22 and 40%. Beyond that, we become technical divers. We're not just recreational diving. All right. Everyone got that? Make sense? I know. It's 1.4. The PO2 is always 1.4 for us. Unless it says scientific diver, it's going to be 1.6. For us, it's 1.4. All right, let's get away from math for a little bit, and then we'll come back to it. Now I know why everybody wanted to, not do math on their compasses. So let's talk about nitrox dive planning. Diving with nitrox is obviously not a way to completely eliminate the risk of decompression sickness. So dive a conservative plan. Don't push dive tables or computers, and still keep your ascent rates at 30 feet of salt water per minute or slower. And have safety stops for all dives. At what depth? For how long? 15 for 3, right. Other really important things. Avoid dehydration. The number one cause of diver headaches is dehydration. And use conservative time to fly limits. So how many of you think you're going to be traveling and diving? Yeah, it's awesome. It's awesome. And so with air, you're pretty much taught it's 24 hours. With nitrox, you have a little more wiggle room. Conservatively, you could say 18 hours. Some people say 12. But which one do you think is smarter?
18.
Exactly, 18 to 24 hours, right? I mean, again, I've done 18, I have, but I'm going to make sure my last dives are shallow, easy dives if I'm going to do that. That's on nitrox. I wouldn't do it on air. I would do 24 hours. If you really want to be safe, like really, really safe, go 24. I'm just telling you, this girl is just crazy about you too.
She's so cuddly.
I know, she is cuddly. I had
Congratulations on your new daughter.
I had an open water class in here the other day, and I had mainly guys in the class, and they were all kind of, she was concerned at first, and then she was in every single one of their laps making the rounds. So she is really cuddly. She's really cuddly. So anyway, so she is a sweetie. All right, so sorry to get distracted a little bit. Where was I? Watch exertion levels because CO2 toxicity happens more easily when you're breathing hyperoxic mixtures. And safety levels can be increased, again, by using air tables or computers with breathing nitrox. Now let's talk about another complex topic, equivalent air depth, EAD. So this compares the partial pressure of nitrogen in a nitrox mixture at a planned depth with that of air. So since Henry's law describes a direct relationship, if the pressure of nitrogen is lower, then the absorption of nitrogen will be lower and predictable. So here's the EAD. Yeah, get ready with you're going to want to write this down, okay? The EAD equation creates an equivalent depth which is shallower than the planned depth, and the dive can be planned as an air dive to the equivalent air depth. So this is the equation. The equivalent air depth is the fraction of nitrogen divided by 0.79. Where did we get 0.79 from? Where do you think that is?
Normal air.
Yeah, that's that right? That's a fraction of nitrogen in air. So times depth plus 33 in parentheses minus 33.
Well,
So-
you already told me what 33 was, and I forgot again.
It's the atmosphere. It's like right now we're at 0. At 33, it's 1 atmosphere absolute.
Okay.
And in freshwater, it's 34.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Okay? So 0.79 is the fraction of nitrogen in air, and the nitrox mixture is analyzed for the fraction of oxygen and the fraction of nitrogen equals 1 minus the fraction of oxygen, and D is depth in feet of salt water.
Oh, is it right here?
Aww.
Oh.
See, she does make the rounds. Cat likes a dog. Cat likes a dog.
I love
Aw,
dogs.
I know.
I just love other people's dogs.
I know. I always said that till I got my own.
Well, my cats would seriously like.
I have cats that love my dogs. Okay, enough about that. So, everyone has that? Definitely you're going to need this equation. Everyone has it.
Mhm.
All right. So some fraction of nitrogen values. For air is 0.79. EAN 32 is 0.68. EAN 36 is 0.64. EAN 40 is 0.6. These are pretty easy, right? Look at how the numbers came about. All right? Equivalent air depth, EAD, is 0.68 divided by 0.79 times 90 plus 33 minus 33. So this is if diving to 90 feet of salt water using EAN 32. Where do we get the 0.68 from? Right? It's the equivalent air depth, right? The fraction. Divided by 0.79, which is air, times 90, which we said was our depth, plus 33, and then take that minus 33. And the equivalent air depth would be 72.9, and we always round up with scuba with time and depth, right? So we're going to round up to 80. All right. I know. Listen, I'm going to say it again. This is it's a lot of information, and it's something you're never going to have to do unless you want to do some complex diving. So if you do need to dive plan somewhere, like I mentioned, the Oriskany somewhere with a really kind of weird depth that's not so obvious, that's the only time you're going to need it. 99% of the time, you're just going to need to analyze your cylinder, write the 4 things that I'm going to talk about that need to be on it, and go diving, and don't exceed your maximum operating depth. That's all you need to do. So again, this is just the science behind it. Don't get overly stressed about it. Okay? So the EAD for certain mixtures, here it is, and you can see where those came from, pretty much, I hope. All right. Dive planning, no decompression, limits for selected equivalent air nitrogen. Okay? Is that rain? It's such a foreign sound. We had like months without it, and I know it's just suddenly. Anyway, nitrox dive planning. Here's the fun stuff, guys. All right. So, who has their air tables on them? Does anyone have air tables? Take your air tables out. You're going to help us out here. And here, for this side of the room, you guys share this over there somewhere. Okay? So here's our plan. 100 feet, we want to dive to 100 feet. Okay? So on air, what letter are we? For 17 minutes. 100 feet for 17 minutes. Okay? Now, look at your EAN 36 table. We're going to dive 36. 100 feet for 17. What are we? Okay. Everyone make sure you see that? The 36, which is the green one. So, I don't know what your experience is using a table, but I'm going to refresh you really quick. So, 100 is right here. See, these are the depths. And then 17. And we're going to go over here and round up to 20. and then follow that down.
She said
So we're at E.
Nitrox.
Okay.
That would not make it.
Everyone see the difference so far? But wait, we have a surface interval time of 2 hours. Surface interval time of 2 hours. Now tell me what we are. So first, let's look at air. What are we now? What letter?
What were we before F?
We're a D.
D.
Okay. Now here we're an E. We said so. We went 100 for 17. We rounded up to 20. We're an E diver. We're gonna find where the 3 hours is here.
You said 2
Yeah.
hours.
Did I say 2? Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me just check the problem. Hang on. I think I meant to say 3 hours.
Oh.
Hang on. Let me look at the problem. Nope, 2 hours. You're right. 2 hours. I'm tired. 2 hours. All right. So find where the 2 hours falls on table B. Yeah, you got it. So you found where the 2 hours fall. So what letter are we on air again?
Well, oh,
On air?
On D.
Okay. So air we're a D and nitrox 36 we're a C, right? All right. So our next dive, we want to go to 80 feet for 14 minutes. 80 feet for 14 minutes. Everyone have that? What do we need to do with our second dive? Add what?
The 18,
What's 18?
original one.
Okay. Suzanne, you know how to do that? Okay. So can you walk us through what you just did? Why do we add residual nitrogen time?
So we are a D diver, and we're diving 80 feet for 14 minutes, which is our maximum bottom time. And so the top number is.
He's looking at an air table right now. Okay. So he's going to walk us through it, and then we'll do the same with. We'll have Walt do the nitrox one. So continue.
So D diver, 80 minutes. So our maximum bottom time is 14 minutes, and we're hitting that. We're hitting the maximum. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and so we have to add 18, which is our residual nitrogen time.
And so 18 plus
What's our
14.
plus 14?
Mm-hmm. And we get what? 32, and then what do we do with that?
Add it to.
So we go back up to table A, and we find 80 for 32. It's 80 for 32.
That's
What is it?
H.
H diver. Right. Now, I want you to do the same for nitrox 36. So you're a C diver. Kat, can you get with Suzanne and show her how to? Do you remember how? Walt, do you remember how? Can you three get together?
Where's C diver?
I want to make sure. Yeah.
So we're doing the here, and then the bottom number, or residual nitrogen is the top number.
Yeah.
So,
Exactly the same.
14.
No, we don't. That's wrong.
yeah, was it 14 minutes at what?
18,
14 minutes. 80 feet for 14 minutes.
14.
So what's our residual nitrogen time? 14. So 14 plus 14. 28. So 80 for 28 on.
And you come back over here and pick up the 80 feet.
Okay.
So we're C.
We're C.
You go over.
To 80. Didn't we say our second dive's 80 feet?
Oh, right. We're
Yeah.
at 80 feet at.
So C and 80.
Okay. So
Okay.
it's 24.
So 24, and we add 24 to what I say the actual one? 14. So that's 38. So now go back up to table A.
And we're going 80 feet.
Mm-hmm.
What did you say, 38?
I don't remember what I just said. I think it was 30.
I don't understand.
I think it was.
So 80 feet.
I think it was. Okay.
80.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, 24 plus 14.
Okay.
38. So 80.
80 for 38.
This road.
Isn't it 19, not 24?
Yeah.
That's wrong.
Yeah,
We
it's-
messed up.
Yeah, it's
What
19.
letter did you get?
It's
Because C going to 80 feet, it's 1932, so I don't know where 24 is coming from.
All right, I'm gonna show you
I
the
totally
answer.
like the wrong.
Yeah, I think we're looking at the wrong column.
We were down at D.
Okay.
That's what
Okay, yeah, that's what I was like.
Everyone have it?
Okay, so it is 1932.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so
we were looking at
19
that.
was the residual.
So you guys see how we got everyone is on the same page? No. Okay.
19 and 32, which is the residual?
The top number.
19.
Top is
So
residual.
let me help you. Since your dive instructor didn't tell you this, the bottom number is bottom time. The top number is residual nitrogen time. And if you ever forget, I want you to look down here for a minute. It gives you a cheat sheet and it tells you residual nitrogen time is the top number. But here's the easy way to remember: the bottom number is bottom time. Bottom number is bottom time. Okay.
So you take the 19 and add it to the
So residual nitrogen time plus actual bottom time of the second dive equals total bottom time. Then you go back up to table A with the same depth of dive 2 and the new number, total bottom time, and then you get an F diver. Right? We're not done. This is a 3-dive problem. So. Got it, Suzanne? No? All right, so I'm going to start from scratch here. We're all going to go through this together. 100 feet, you put your finger on it and you follow along with me. 100 feet for 17.
17.
So go over here and round up. So you round it up to 20 and we're an E diver. Okay, surface interval 2 hours. Follow that down to table B. Find where the 2 hours is. Good. We're now a C diver. We have that so far. Second dive, we want to go to 80 feet. So we find where C and 80, which it runs across the top here, see where C and 80 intersect. And we want to get the residual nitrogen time. So that's 19, the top number. And so we have our actual depth. So we need to add our residual nitrogen time to our actual bottom time, which is 14. So 19 plus 14. Equals what?
19 is the top number on the
Where the C and the 80 intersect, right here. C and 80. You got it right there. Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay. So we have a new number is 33. So 80 for 33. 80 for 33. Don't go back to 100. That was dive 1. We're on dive 2. 80 for 33. Yes. Okay, great. We're all on the same page now. Now we're going to sit out for 2 more hours. Surface interval 2 hours. This is easy. The hard part's over with.
Back to D diver.
Okay? You got it? So what about on air?
So
We were an H diver. Sat out for 2 hours.
we were an F diver.
Everyone have that? You see the difference? All right.
It's 2 hours.
Our third dive, we want to go to 60 feet for 37 minutes. Everybody figured that out. So we got to come out of here. So 60 feet for 37 minutes. 60 feet for 37 minutes.
62. Can't do it.
Ah, what's wrong with air? Let's start with air. What happened with air?
We exceeded.
We exceeded. We're in deco.
Yeah.
This is bad.
We're in the black.
We are done. We are toast. What about nitrox?
We can go we're at
70 minutes.
yeah.
We're an I. Okay, good. Tell us how you got that, because I think we have some.
So
Confusion.
you end your dive, you sit out for 2 hours, which puts you at D as a D diver. So then you go over, you wanted to go to 60 feet. So you find where it says 60 in the blue numbers, so you have to go to the top row. And then you go over to find where it corresponds with D, and that's 32 is the residual nitrogen, and then the bottom number is the bottom time, the maximum time you can do is 70. Do you see the 32 and 70? I don't know if anyone's following wrong.
I'm totally following you. Your
Okay.
You got it?
You could be a teacher. Your explanations.
Aw.
Yay.
Yay. So everyone understand? So if we were on a dive with somebody diving Nitrox 36 and we were diving air, they could dive that last dive for 37 minutes and we could only dive for 16 minutes without exceeding. And so you can see where the benefit is. Plus our letter is only I. We would be at the very end of the table on air if we did that. So we're really pushing the limits. Okay? All right, let's talk a little bit more about Nitrox dive planning. So there are times you're going to want to change your mix. For example, when I dive in Jupiter, I know that my first dive and my second dive are typically going to be deep dives, and my third dive is going to be more shallow. Or in some cases, my first dive is super deep. By super deep, I mean not exceeding, 32%. I'm not going to exceed the PO2 of 1.4, so we'll get into what number that is later. So I'm going to have maybe one deep dive and then two shallower dives, and by shallower, I'm talking like 80 feet, okay? Because that's a lot of what we do in South Florida. There's a lot of deep diving. So I don't want to dive the same mix for all three dives. I want to change my mix. And so we're going to talk about what to do, what would you need to do? Typically, you're going to dive your leanest, which is the least oxygen mix first. So let's say that I had two Nitrox 32 cylinders and one 36. Which one am I going to dive first? Mm-hmm. I have one air, 132, and 136. Which one am I going to dive first? Air. Yeah. So it's the one with the least amount of oxygen in the mix. So off-gassing is more efficient with higher EAN and shallower water, and tables are created from the same model are interchangeable. So using SEI, I can switch between tables. This is the beauty of it, I can use all three of those tables in the last scenario I just gave you. And we'll go through an example of that. So you can't switch different agencies' dive tables. So if you're a PADI diver, you can't go from a PADI air table to a SEI Nitrox table. It's going to be complicated if you do that. You're going to have different numbers, basically. Okay? So when changing mixtures between dives, you always want to obtain, this is important, the residual nitrogen time from the new gas mixture. So when you come off of that surface interval time and you're going over to table C, that's when you switch to your new gas mixture. So let's just do an example. Dive 1 is going to be on air, okay? 80 feet for 15 minutes. Yeah, so you guys who don't have your air tables, look here.
80 feet, round up to 16. So now we're in D.
Okay? See that, Suzanne?
I'll do it for you again, just so you see it. 80 feet, we're going to 16 because she said 15 and D.
Okay, surface interval 2 hours. Now what?
We're a B diver.
We're a B diver. Dive 2, we want to dive on Nitrox 32.
So we stay on B.
We stay on B, and here's the plan. We want to go 80 feet for 15 minutes. 80 feet for 15 minutes. Everyone try to figure that out. 80 feet for 15 minutes.
80 feet for
27. Because we're in that diver.
12.
Not 15.
Mm-hmm.
Does everyone see it? Suzanne, you have an answer? Nope. Walt, you have an answer? So we were a B coming off of the last table. We're still a B. We're a B coming off of table B. And we want to dive to 80 feet for 15 minutes. So what do we do? Everyone help me out. What do we do?
I don't know if you guys got confused where I got confused. The numbers over here, you're looking for a 15, and that's not what you're looking for. You're just looking to where 80 matches with B.
Yeah, that's all.
Then 15 comes in later.
Right, when you add your residual nitrogen time to your actual bottom time to get your total bottom time.
If you added both the, for here is 12 and 30, so if you added those together, it would put you at 42, which is the farthest that you can go at 80 feet. So, but you're not going that far, we're only going for 15 minutes, so you just do 12 plus 15.
Because I don't know, I was curious.
It just tells
So
you
if it's
how far you can
Exactly.
possibly go.
We're going to 80, so you're just matching there. So now that you have that number, the top number you're at to 15.
Oh, I have 15 is what we're.
15 plus 12 is what we'd be looking at.
So we were told we're gonna dive nitrox 32, 80 for 15. He's so cute.
What we're right now.
Sort that.
Do you know what I mean?
You said something.
That would be.
The residual time for the new gas mixture, that's not entering into this yet.
It is. We're on the new gas mixture.
We are in the.
We are. If you remember, we started with air.
Oh, right. So
Okay.
we went to the
We started with
32.
air and we came off the air with our surface interval of a B diver.
So we're like 80.
And then we switched to nitrox 32 to get our residual nitrogen time from nitrox 32.
Okay.
So I think what confuses us, or me at least, because I'm looking for 15 here, and you're not looking, you're just trying to see where 80 feet and B lines up. I don't know if that's where you're getting confused, but that's why.
Is everyone on the same page? Okay. Surface interval 2 hours. Tell me what we are now. We were in F. Surface interval 2 hours. What are we now?
D.
Everyone have D? Suzanne, you have
The
D?
only thing I got
I
right here.
forgot what you said we're doing.
I know, it's, sometimes, Suzanne, sometimes I have to start all over. So sometimes I have to start all over, but, so we were coming off of,
We were B,
we were B,
and what are we doing now?
so, so we were, I don't know actually, 'cause I'm not sure. So we were a B diver and we switched to EAM 32, right? And we looked for the 80, right? Which was our second dive, so 80, and we found 12, which was the top number, residual nitrogen time. We added it to our actual bottom time of 15 to get 27. Now we go back up to table A, 80 for 27, the new number, 80 for 27. So we rounded up to 28, we're in F. Now we stay out for 2 hours.
That's
Yeah. Now we're back together.
2 hours.
Yeah. And then you follow it over and you're a D diver. Okay. So we are all on the same page. Do you have that, Walt?
Yeah.
Okay. So we are a D diver. And the next thing we want to do is we want to use EAN 36. Okay, so everyone get your 36 tables out. We are a D diver. And we want to go to 80 feet for 20 minutes. We have a letter? Good. Lots of letters. Everyone have it?
Is there a surface interval time? What are we?
We had a surface interval of 2 hours previously. And now we're gonna do-
just D divers and we're going.
We're a D diver, and we're switching to EAN 36, which is green. So we're a D diver coming off of table B. And we want to go to 80 feet for 20 minutes. All we're going to do is find where the 80 and the D intersect on table C.
Do you want me to line it up with you? Does that make it easier or harder?
You do what?
Do you want me to help you line it up again, or does that make it easier or harder?
Sticking my finger here.
Do you guys see it?
You got it.
So what residual nitrogen time did you get?
24,
Did everyone have 24? So what are you adding 24 to?
20.
20, good. 44, good. So now go back up to table A, 80 for 44.
H.
Yes. You guys got it? Good. Woo! All right. So let's talk about the nitrox advantage. Available no decompression stop bottom times using nitrox are so large at some depths that the diver will run out of air before they run out of bottom time. So, I mean, so if you're doing like scalloping, for example, how many of you like to scallop? Okay. scalloping on nitrox is fabulous, and you can just sit there forever breathing, and you're not ever going to exceed your limits, and so you're going to run out of air before you run out of bottom time.
449 minutes.
Yes, exactly. 449. Now me on the other hand, I can stay there for 449 minutes if I breathe.
You take a nap.
I just get in the scuba zen mode. So
Yoga.
it's just zen, just like it's my happy place. Yes. So dive conservatively. If a diver uses all available no decompression stop time on the Nitrox table or computer, then they have no physiological advantage versus an air dive. So in other words, if you're at the very end of the table all the time, you're out there in the K and the M, and you're really pushing the limits, you're not really helping yourself. So dive conservatively. And again, the most conservative is if you dived an air table with Nitrox, which people only tend to do if they have a buddy who dives air. So, but if you're sick or whatever, it might be a good plan if you're really not having a good day. Now, let's talk about, I mentioned that most Nitrox-related injuries are in filling stations. So with partial pressure blending, pure oxygen is added to an empty cylinder and topped off with air. Partial pressure blending is the most common form of nitrox blending. It's also the most inaccurate method, and it presents the greatest danger of hydrocarbon ignition in a pure oxygen environment. And blending accuracy requires practice. This is what a partial pressure blending station looks like. Other systems include denitrogenating systems, where nitrogen is removed from air by way of a membrane to give a final EAN mixture. No equipment or cylinder modifications are needed. Oxygen percentage is adjusted to the desired point, and then nitrox is pumped through the compressor into cylinders or a storage bank, and it looks something like that. Yeah, fancy. Not many people have that. And finally, we have continuous blending, where a mixing chamber is used to mix low-pressure oxygen and air that's mixed in a column. And when the mixture has a desired oxygen percentage, it's pumped through the compressor, like that. So for use with enriched air nitrox tables, including SEI, an FO2 within 1%, and I mentioned this in the beginning of class, 1% is considered acceptable. So if you order 32 and they give you 33, it's okay. If they give you 31, it's okay. Now, if you tell them, I need this to be 32 and this is a really critical dive, I need it to be 32, they're going to do their best to get it as close as possible. And you might get 32.2 or 32.4, but you're generally not going to get one whole percentage away. And if it is more than 1%, you have the right to say, I asked for 32 and I really, now that being said, I dive so much that if I get something like, let's say Coral Reef has a new person on board and they haven't quite figured out how to master mixing, and I got 34% when I ordered 32%. It's not a big deal to me because I'm not doing a deep dive, and I might be doing a shipwreck in Panama City, and I can manage with that, but it's up to you. So use air used in partial pressure blending must it be Coast Guard, CGA, Coast Guard. My brain is so tired right now. What is CGA? Coast Guard approved, modified. I'm just going to say CCGA for now because I can't talk anymore. I'm sorry, it's Friday night and it's late. It's been a long week. But it has to be modified grade E air, which is hyperfiltered. Air used in membrane or continuous blending also needs to be CGA grade E. And oxygen needs to be medical or aviator's grade. Back in the day, they used to give prescriptions for oxygen. Some places still do. I know that I had a prescription to get oxygen when I first got O2 certified. Every cylinder of enriched air nitrogen must be analyzed by the blender and the user and labeled for content and MOD before transport. Each diver should sign the fill log verifying the mixture. People are very particular about nitrox. So certain places you dive, they're going to be more particular than others. Coral Reef used to be particular. They had a log, you filled it out. If you rented a cylinder for them, you wrote the serial number down. They don't do that anymore. Places in South Florida, they do it, and you better have your card with you or they're not going to rent it to you. So, you just have to be aware that most places do require you to fill out a log of some sort. So this is what a log would typically have. Lots of information, the serial number of the cylinder, the owner, the FO2, the date, mixed by, the MOD. And then the second analysis of the FO2, the signature, the date, and verify the MOD. From my experience, they don't give you the MOD. You have to know it, but it's easy because it's always the same. And we'll go over what that means in just a minute. Now, dedicated nitrox cylinders need to be marked with nitrox labels and content stickers. So they're not going to look like regular air cylinders. That's going to have typically a green and yellow label on it that says nitrox. This is important. The 4 things that every cylinder that you get that has nitrox on it, you need to put the following 4 things on it. We always have a piece of duct tape and we write these 4 things. The fraction of oxygen, so 32.2%, for example. The MOD, which we'll get into in a minute. The date and your initials. Those 4 things should be on all nitrox cylinders that you use. And then storage cylinders should be marked according to DOT and Coast Guard requirements. Okay? Everyone understand what the 4 things are?
What do you write it on?
We have a piece of duct tape.
A duct tape.
And we just, it takes up about this much space. And we just write the date, our initials.
And stick it on the tank?
Yeah. Yep.
Just regular duct tape.
Regular duct tape. When you go to a dive shop, it's already going to have a piece of duct tape on it.
We'll have it there.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so in some
the date
cases.
Of the dive, right?
Huh?
The date of the dive.
No, it's the date you analyze it.
Okay,
It's the date you analyze it.
Um,
Okay? And so what I'll do a lot, let's just say that I'm picking it up at the dive shop the same day they analyzed it. I'm going to leave the date. I'm going to add, they don't put their, well, they might put their initials. I'm going to add my initials. I'm going to fix the percentage if it's anything different than they had. If it's the same, I'm going to leave it. And then I'm going to put the MOD with, they're not going to put that. I put MOD and whatever the MOD is. It's my responsibility to know that. Okay? So scuba cylinders need to be labeled according to industry standards. And it's usually a 4-inch sticker indicating that there's nitrox. Yeah, they say stenciling is acceptable, but I've never really seen. I don't really see people stencil things. It looks typically like this, okay? And this is a CGA specified neck diamond for oxygen, pure oxygen. Now, don't forget that oxygen is a great oxidizer and an accelerant of combustion. So improper blending can be extremely dangerous. Blending needs to be done by trained personnel, and diving cylinders blended by partial pressure should be O2 clean. So you can't take your air cylinder and get it filled with nitrox, now that you're nitrox certified. If you own your own air cylinder, you need to get them to convert it to nitrox. So they're going to clean some things, they're going to make sure that it has the right O-rings, and they're going to make sure that it's nitrox ready. Diving systems do not generally need additional service if the FO2 in the breathing mixtures is 40% or less. So again, we are certified in this class 22 to 40%. And our regulator stages and valves should contain oxygen-compatible O2 rings. I mentioned Viton earlier, and lubricants, including Crystolube. So for oxygen clean systems, other materials must be used. Now, if you have a newer regulator, it's already going to be nitrox ready. But if you have one from 25 years ago, you need to get it serviced and make sure that it's nitrox ready. Once O2 clean cylinders have been exposed to air that's not hyperfiltered, and they need to be cleaned again. Well, now let me just clarify. It depends on the mixing method. So I shared with you the 3 kinds of mixing methods that are used, the blending methods. At Coral Reef, I can get my nitrox cylinder filled with air, and it's not going to change. It's not going to affect anything. And for years, when I didn't have as many cylinders, that's what I would do. And so now that I have a lot of cylinders, I tend to keep only nitrox and nitrox cylinders and only air in the air cylinder. When I go to South Florida, there'd be shops that used a different blending method, and they refused to put anything but nitrox in a nitrox cylinder. So it really does depend on the blending method that they use. And again, most equipment these days are already nitrox ready. Nitrox blenders should be properly trained, including training on oxygen safety. Are we trained to blend in this class? Is this a
No.
no? We are not. Okay, good.
Just analyze.
Just analyze.
Isn't that a test question?
That is a test question. Shh. You took the test already, right? Did you take the test already?
You sent it to me.
You did not take the test already. Okay, good.
I read through it today.
Shh. Okay.
What?
You're not supposed to do that.
Yeah, what
All right.
kind of crap is this?
I know. All right, so O2 Clean, thanks a lot, Kat. O2 Clean is a cleaning process that involves removal of all hydrocarbon-based lubricants for use in a pure oxygen environment. Viton is a kind of O-ring material used in an oxygen environment, and O2 compatible includes lubricants and materials that may be used in an enriched O2 environment like Crystolube. Here's a review. Enriched air nitrox is not new technology. Advantages include less nitrogen available for absorption, less decompression stress if bottom time is limited, and longer no decompression stop limits for single and repetitive dives. And also less surface interval time is required. What are the concerns? O2 toxicity is one concern. What's convented?
Motion, visual disruption, hearing disruption,
Nausea.
or vomiting / vomiting.
Keep going. Good.
Oh, twitching.
Twitching. Irritability, dizziness. Very good. Very good.
Yeah.
You don't have to memorize all of them, but if you kind of have a handle on it, you're going to get the test question right.
What's T?
Dizziness.
Can you show me what T was again?
You're not either.
Am I not twitching well?
I'm always gonna remember T now.
Okay. Ticking. So it requires planning to avoid decompression sickness still and CNS oxygen toxicity. It is a little more expensive. It is available, and there are blending challenges. Oxygen is not a forgiving gas, so you really need to analyze. MOD is maximum operating depth. FO2 is the decimal fraction of oxygen is the best mix at depth. PO2 is oxygen dose, which is central nervous system exposure. EAD is equivalent air depth, and it's used to plan dives using air tables or create nitrox tables. You want to always dive the leanest mixture first and then progress to more rich mixes when you're changing gases, if you change gases. With dive planning, diving air tables or a computer with nitrox is the most conservative way. And nitrox is a relatively shallower water gas mixture. So relatively meaning like 110 feet, you're really not going to go deeper than that. Proper labeling is essential for safety, and a dedicated nitrox cylinder requires a 4-inch yellow and green band around the top of the cylinder. These are additional references, and that is the end of our session. And I apologize for my fatigue, and we are going to take the test as soon as I stop recording. Just a moment. If anyone needs to take a break, now would be a good time to do so.
Oh my God,
Okay.
No, we don't want to break. We want to finish it up.
All right.